So this is how I filter out water when there's no potable water around. I use the Katahdyn Hiker Pro. You can actually change out the filters in these. I'll show you how it's done. I get the camera instead. So start by putting your intake into the water. Drop it in, adjust your float. This part right here, just the float. So this part isn't sitting on the bottom. This is your pre-filter and a sinker. Next thing you want to do is you want to start pumping, but you don't want to connect, you don't want to get the water that first comes out of this because it might taste a little funky. So it's best to give it a few pumps before you start putting it into wherever you want to store it. Sometimes it takes a while. See how that water's coming out there now? That's not really the water that you'd want. Put in your camelback. It might taste a little funky, so give it a couple pumps. It also gets all the air out of the system. Alright, next thing you do, hook it right into your camelback. Just like that. This way, you don't get any air in your system. I'm going to dump out the water I have in there. From a hotel I stayed at. I don't want the creek water and city water combining. Make some weird flavor. Set that flat. This thing takes like 30 pumps to get this thing full. Wait out there. You know what? I'm gonna put a rock under it so it stays on it, or over it so it stays out there. You want to do this nice and slowly, because that's what instructions tell you to do. It just sucks that it takes a while to load up a gallon of water, drink more water. This is why I wear flip-flops too. So I have to put my feet in the water. No big deal. Flip-flops, you don't have to worry about water soaking into them. You just shake them off, let them sit in the sun for a few minutes, and they're good to go. You see how many pumps it's taken to fill this camelback. It's only a 3-liter camelback, about a gallon of water. But it's more reliable than what the Sawyer filters are. I had a Sawyer filter last year and I use it as an inline filter, so I would put dirty water in the camelback and then filter it out with the Sawyer as I drank. The problem with that is, after a while, it just decided to stop letting water flow through as easily. So I couldn't get enough water throughout the day. I ended up getting dehydrated. And then the filter just slowed down to a couple drops and I couldn't filter anything anymore. It was a disaster. They're cheap. They'll work in a pinch. temporarily. They will not do anywhere near what they say. They say they'll filter out like 1,000 gallons of water. Yeah, I didn't filter out 1,000 gallons of water. I got maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 gallons of water through it. And I get most of my water from streams. So the water here is pretty clear. Not that much dirt sediment. So also it tasted like dead minnows. So it just wasn't a very good taste at the end either. It just made the whole experience unpleasant. This thing, I believe has carbon in it to help enhance the flavor of the water. So you don't get like whatever the water is from the source. You don't get the flavor from whatever source you're filtering from. Now I wouldn't go sticking this inside of a muddy puddle because you don't know what's in that puddle. This thing filters out like bacteria and microorganisms. It doesn't filter out chemicals like oil and say someone dripped antifreeze in a puddle and they drove their car over it. It doesn't filter out that kind of stuff. Or any other like chemicals that are in the water, that are dissolved in the water. I don't think that you would even be able to filter salt water and get the salt out of the water with a Sawyer. I haven't tried it with the Katahdyn yet, but I hear some filters are that good that you can actually filter out the salt that's dissolved in the water inside of salt water. I don't really live near salt water, so can't really test that out. I'm just gonna assume the Katahdyn is not meant for salt water. Usually filters that are meant for salt water will say salt water rated on them. So we're getting pretty full. Getting there. And again, this water is very clear, not very dirty. Well, it's dirty at the bottom. That's why you want that float on there. I just used a rock to keep the hose in place because the hose kept bringing it in the shore, which there's a bunch of like sediment built up over here. That's the last thing I want, is to get my pre-filter clogged and then have to try to figure that out and clean it out. It's best just to keep everything clean. That way you can filter your water pretty easily. Now this Katahdyn doesn't take much effort to pump. Get some air out of here. I'm going to fill this Camelback because this is the last I'm filtering the water for tonight. I'll probably get some tomorrow morning if I don't run out, if I don't just down all this water tonight. I shouldn't be downing it. I haven't had too much salt today. Almost. Alright, that seems to be pretty full for the Camelback. And I'm just going to rinse, filter itself off in the water. Whatever you do, don't get this hose into unfiltered water. Pull the hose up, kind of rinse it off a little bit. And then you'll kind of want to get all the water out of the system. The water that comes out of here is actually drinkable. So, what you're going to do, you're going to pump. And you can pump it really fast to get all the water. You want mostly air in the system. That way if it gets too cold at night, you don't have to worry too much about the filter going bad. If you don't have any water in your filter and it freezes at night, you should be able to use it again. But in things like the Sawyer, there's no way to force the water out of it. So you're kind of stuck with a wet filter. So if it gets below freezing at night inside of a Sawyer, what happens is when water freezes, it expands, and it'll open up those channels, allowing those microbes through that you don't want. That can make you really sick. Alright, that seems like everything is out. That's how you use the Katahdyn Hiker Pro.